the value of n. So what we are going to do is to change 125 base n to base 10, and then the 85 is already in base 10, and then there it would be easier for us to find the value of n. So we are going to begin by powering. So we are going to have our 125 base n. So begin with power 0, power 1, and power 2. So this would be the same as 1 times n to power 2 plus 2 times n to power 1 plus 5 times n to power 0. So this would be the same as 1 times n squared plus 2 times n, then plus 5 times 1. So this would be n squared plus 2n plus 5. So this is now in base 10. So we are now going to say 125 base n equaling to 85 base 10 is the same as, so we replace the 125 with the changed form of base to base 10, which is n squared plus 2n plus 5 is equal to 85. So what we do, we are going to, since we have an n squared, it becomes a quadratic equation. And we are going, so we know that for a quadratic equation, it is equated to 0. So x plus b, now this is the power 2, plus c is equal to 0. So our aim is to equate the 85, no, the whole expression to 0. So we are going to transfer the 85 to the left-hand side. So we shall have n squared plus 2n plus 5. Then the 85 now becomes a negative because it has crossed the equal signs. So it becomes negative 85, and we equate that to 0. So this would be n squared plus 2n minus negative minus 80. Equate this to 0. So that is our simplified form of that equation. So what we are going to do is to get two numbers. So let me write it here, n squared plus 2n minus 80 is equal to 0. So we are going to get two numbers that we multiply to give us negative 80, and when we add them to give us a 2. So what could be those numbers? Those numbers that we add to give us, that we multiply to give us negative 80, and when added to give us 2. You can send the answer in the chat.
It's a good graduation.
So okay. So the numbers that we multiply to give us -8, and when added to give us a 2 are 10 and 8. So if we want to add and get a 2, then it is the 8 that is negative. Is it okay? So what we are going to do is now to replace the 2 by the 10 and 8. So we shall have n squared plus 10n minus 8n minus 8, and this is equal to 0. Then we are going to group to have them in 2 pairs. So the first pair would be n squared plus 10n then we minus open bracket 8n plus 8 and we put that to 0. So this positive comes in because we have a negative outside. So when we open the brackets again and we get negative times positive, it still gives us a negative, and we have that in the original equation. So after doing the pairing, we are going to find the common factor in each bracket. So what is the common factor in the first bracket? The number that we can divide by n squared, and as well divide it by 10n. Okay, it would be n, thank you. So we shall have n into n plus 10. So when we take away the n, we remain with n, and on 10n, if we took away the n, we remain with 10. What is the common factor in the second bracket? Four is not the right one, much as it can divide by both of them. So we want to have a term which is similar to the n plus 10, like the way it is in the first, after we have opened the first bracket, because our aim is to also create a common factor which is n plus 10. So what we are going to do in the second bracket, so this can be divisible by 8, and the 8 as well can be divisible by 8. So the common factor is 8, then still we remain with, okay, thank you, n plus 10, and this is equal to 0. So you can see that n plus 10 and n plus 10 is common. So we are going to write it once. Then we are going to have n minus 8 into n plus 10. And then we equate this to 0. So you can first do some copying if you want to before, because I want to rub off some parts.
Bad news, my father's died just now, sorry. Smart hasn't been good for us finally.
So we continue and say our n minus 8 is equal to n plus 10. And this is equal to 0. So we say either n minus 8 is equal to 0. And when the n crosses the equal signs, when the 8 crosses the equal signs, we shall have n equaling to 8. Or n plus 10 is equal to 0 and n is equal to, so when the 10 crosses to the right hand side, we shall have, it will change to a negative, and this becomes negative what? 10. So we have two answers for the n value, but we are interested in the base. And according to what we have so far covered, we have not seen negative number bases. So we shall conclude and say n is equal to 8, simply because our base cannot be a negative. Any questions before I proceed?
Medipol. Medipol, eyo ngira bakukuko nyinyi. Nja kukunoonya. Abantu bagamba amasanyu gabagamba nako.
Okay, so our next topic is going to be on hire purchase. And with hire purchase is where we buy a commodity or a good or an item, and we pay in installments. And it always has an initial value that you have to deposit, and we call that a down payment or a deposit. And in calculating it, the values are specified. For example, as we can see in this example,
Yes, I'm fine. Right, that's good. I don't want to come next time. I don't see. No, I love that one. Yeah, I got him. Yeah, free dinner was sister.